You are now listening to the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Greetings, welcome to Two in the Pinku podcast. Experience a deep dive into softcore Japanese sexploitation cinema from the 60s up into the present, with an emphasis on sleaze and seduction. We are monthly or bi-weekly, and we're not even bi.
Will pink film save our marriage? Find out on Two in the Pinku podcast.
Hello and welcome to Split Your Head. I'm your host Bob, and today's special guest is Kalil Haddad, a Toronto-based filmmaker who's been making some of the most provocative and powerful short films I've ever seen. He's been touring his recent cycle of films dubbed He Never Dies, a set of 4 pieces that collage together vintage gay porn, images of death, motifs of nostalgia, and ambient noise to a startling effect, at times terrifying and at others highly evocative. He's clearly a super talented artist making ferociously compelling work. So I had to have him on to figure out what the hell is going on in that brain of his. Khalil, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so stoked to talk to you because these films, they lay eggs in your brain. And so you've been touring it's the He Never Dies cycle, these 4 films. What's the
Yes.
reaction been like from people so far?
Really positive, I think. Yeah, really positive. I think, I mean, I've heard a lot of, when I've gone to a lot of these screenings or when I've spoken in Q&As, a lot of people mentioning that they haven't really seen films that formally kind of exist in this way necessarily or kind of cover these topics in this way. So I think for a lot of people, it's a new kind of film experience or a new type of film. Um, Yeah, and so I think to that regard, it's been very positive. It's been very positive, I would say. Yeah,
Mm.
I mean, we can get into it more. Like as with everything, there's always going to be some. It's because I'd say too, there's been a lot of positive reactions. There's also been some uh, reactions that kind of question the ethics of the film and the representations of the film, which I think
Oh,
is also
okay.
interesting and valid and in its own right to kind of discuss.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's been kind of different. It's been interesting too, based on the ages of the audience too, and also like where audiences are. I find like it's funny how young people in one city will react to it versus the way young people in another city will react to it versus how older
Sure.
people, older gay men who maybe lived through it react to it. So
Yeah.
there's been a variety of kind of different reactions, but they all been kind of fascinating to hear. But overall, I'd say it's been very positive, and people are very interested in kind of discussing the films
Mm.
and how they operate.
Well, not to like reduce the reactions down to like a core set, few ways of describing these things, but like, what would you say is the general, reaction from young people, the general reaction from older gay men? Like, are the like, who is more likely to have a negative reaction then out of these groups?
In a funny way, I actually think younger people,
Yeah.
um, which I was actually surprised by initially, but it's like you hear, especially now in the last few months, I've been hearing so much discourse about Gen Z and like sex scenes in movies, and I think for some Gen Zs, like it's kind of ironic because I would consider myself a very progressive person, but I think other people look at progressivism as Puritanism in some ways, and really want to and
Mm.
really take issue with the depiction of sex scenes um, and I guess the overt sexuality in the films,
But do you think
in a
that's
way that I thought maybe young people would be more open to naturally.
Sure. But do you think that's because like a lot of your work plays into, I would say almost like really, to put it as cheesy as possible, like the loss of innocence. You see a lot of men portraying boys, and there's also, especially in The Boy Was Found Unharmed, like the idea of like predators coming into play. And that was probably the
Mhm.
only short that I watched where I was like, like I wasn't offended, but it definitely brought up questions that I was like, can we be asking that? Do you know what I mean? But I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, if you even want to start there, really, I mean, because like
Well,
that is
yeah.
that's about, is that the only short that's really about a like a specific true story?
Yeah, that's the only documentary short I would call. All the other films contain like hybrid elements of documentary and fiction, but they're kind of blurred together. Like Victim of Circumstance is the life story of the character in that film is an amalgamation of a lot of different vintage porn stars from that era,
Mm,
and I kind of
yeah,
combined a bit of their different life experiences and I put them into one character. So and same with Taking and Jordan. So there's like documentary elements, but it's mostly fictionalized, except for The Boy Was Found Unharmed, which is yeah a documentary. But to your point, like I think with this whole cycle, that's my intention is to kind of propose those questions that should we be asking these, should we be talking about these things, and so and that's why I also think that if like like any kind of reaction that the film has, I think I'm open to kind of hearing that, and I'm kind of interested to hear that too, because uh, like I said, I would expect people my age, younger people, to I don't know, be more open to. Especially, we live. Gen Z is like marketed itself as such a progressive and queer generation, and
totally.
so when you have a film that is so explicitly queer, that is putting gay sex front and center, um, I guess like, and again, this is not what do you call it? Like, I think this has been a very minimal response, like this kind of response. So I don't want to harp too much on it or anything, but it
Yeah,
did kind of interest me in terms of the way that people kind of that age group respond to it. I could understand um, if somebody who maybe lived through the AIDS crisis or lived through queer liberation might have an issue with maybe the darkness, the way in which these things are depicted, but for me, that's an artistic choice in terms of going through this research, looking at the history, seeing what was there, and really trying to, in an evocative, expressionistic kind of way, portray what the feeling of that time would have been like, where you're living, where society at large does hate you. They do have an issue with you. You are an outsider. And what would
mm,
that feel like emotionally? Because we can look back, and that's the thing now. And I think a lot of young people react to, oh, well, queerness now is so open and accepting and mainstream. And so how dare you kind of depict it in this way? And I think that's where their kind of progressive kind of mentality comes from. But at the same
right,
time, I think in terms of wanting to suppress the reality of what was actually there and suppress some of these more unflattering depictions, I think that is very puritanical. And is in itself
totally.
very regressive. Like I think we need to actually address these things and look into the heart of what they were and to the real history to really understand and appreciate that. Like I've said before in some other Q and A's that like I think it's a kind of a perversion of of those who kind of gave themselves in this quest for queer liberation um, to kind of to not acknowledge the place that they hold in history. And I think right now it's so easy to boil down queerness to very superficial signifiers. But I think that we come out of a lineage, and I think we need to be able to appreciate what that lineage is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, whew, so many questions from that. Wow. Okay, so first of all, like, okay, what you're saying with Gen Z being more of a progressive and queer focused generation, my understand, or at least my opinion on it, because I am a millennial, is that it does seem like Gen Z doesn't know how to navigate discomfort. And so discomfort is often associated with something just negative. Like, well, I feel
Hmm.
uncomfortable about this. Maybe I'm being triggered. Maybe this is something that I don't need. Maybe this is something that's happening because of I don't agree with the representation of it. And so I think that your films
Hmm.
have a wide array of different levels of discomfort in them, And that's the other thing too, is like,
Yeah.
because as I was saying in the opening, like a lot of the stuff you make is terrifying, like I would say objectively terrifying. You've got the most
Yeah.
eeriest music, the harshest noise. The way that the strobing comes in is sort of supposed to like bash you over the head, almost like a Gaspar Noé film or something. And so I think
Hmm.
that people maybe are like, okay, I'm feeling horror movie, but I'm seeing queer love. Like, how do I balance that out? Is this saying that this is bad? I don't understand what this is saying. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. No. And I think people instead of instead of questioning or wrestling with their discomfort, I feel like a lot of people project that onto, and not just with my films, I think films in general, like I think it's easier to
Sure.
project onto the film as if what the film is saying is wrong, as opposed to the way that you're interpreting it or the way that it's kind of hitting you is coming from the wrong perspective. Because like I said, for me, it's supposed to be representational of what would it be to exist in a time as this thing that everybody hates and that nobody
Mm,
wants to acknowledge, nobody wants to help. Like it took Ronald Reagan 8 years into the 8 years, 6 to 8 years into the AIDS crisis to even mention it publicly. So this is a
right.
society that doesn't care if you live or die or what happens to you. It's if you went away, it would be just as well to them, basically. And what
Right.
does it mean to live in that society? And so for me, playing noise music with the gay porn is not about gay porn, gay sex is evil or anything like that. It's
Sure.
what does it feel like to live in a time that feels crushing?
Ah,
Uh,
okay. Huh. Okay, but then
yeah.
how do you how do you connect to it on a personal level? Because me watching these films, I think I was trying to find like where you Khalil fit into this. Like how does this tell the story about yourself? Like how do you connect to these kind of like feelings and emotions, you know what I mean? Because there's times where
Mhm.
like the noise started to feel like, oh, this is almost like orgasmic now. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's this
Yeah.
level of like extreme bliss, but it is still almost
Mhm.
violent too, you know? So is that something that, for you personally is like it's speaking to you?
Yeah, well, I think there's a little bit of I think I'm in all of my films or I wouldn't be able to make them. I think they all come out
Sure.
of a very like personal place, even if they're not like necessarily the same black and white experiences that I've been through.
Yeah.
And of course this is a period piece, a victim of circumstance, where the whole cycle are a series of period pieces, right? But um I mean, growing up as a gay kid, even in the early 2000s, it's a I mean, it's removed from the 80s, but it's even more removed from where we are now. And growing up as a
Mm,
kid, like I still like queerness was still very much like ostracized and had bigoted attitudes towards it. And so even though I didn't grow up in this exact same time, I still know what it is to be an outsider, to be bullied for that. You know what I mean? To be treated as
totally.
different for all that. And so I can still relate to these characters in that way. And I often think about, I mean, I love the 80s for its music, for its movies, for its style, whatever. But I always think about like, I could never live in the 80s. I love it, but I couldn't actually live in that generation. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and so I find that very fascinating too because I feel like the 80s is such a gay time, yet was so homophobic and hostile to gay people.
You're making me think of one of the interviews I read with you. You mentioned Cruising and how that was a
Hmm.
film that I think I don't know if this is fair to like compare your work to Cruising in a way, but it is another film that I think depicts certain aspects of gay culture that people aren't necessarily ready to see. And it is a horror movie as well to some extent, right? And so
Yeah.
I think that's kind of an interesting comparison to make in a way of like how it has all these different layers and it's hard for people to kind of wrap their head around it, you know? So I mean when you're saying like
Hmm.
I love the 80s, like you can definitely see it in the aesthetic of what you do. Like there is a certain sense of nostalgia there. I mentioned kept mentioning this in my reviews on Letterbox, like the vaporwave kind of vibe to what you do,
Hmm.
like the music and everything. I mean, sorry, this is total aside, but like do you do the music
Yeah.
yourself?
Um, I don't do the music myself, but I do the sound design myself.
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so sorry, so it does depend. It does depend. Like in some movies, I'm taking a track and slowing it down and creating my own vaporwave track, and
Right.
that's part of like the sound design, I suppose.
Mm,
And then but in Secret Boyfriend, for example, I'm taking like actual like vaporwave tracks that I love, like finished vaporwave tracks, and
cool.
utilizing those in the film. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit different depending on which one. And even with some of the industrial tracks, like I've sped them up or slowed them down. So there is audio manipulation on a lot of different like a lot of different music in the film.
Sure.
But that has like I guess you would say like vaporwave or like chopped and screwed aesthetics outside
Mm.
of just the like the vaporwave pop tracks. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even in His Smell, which I did watch as well, like a lot of
Yeah.
vaporwave in that. It seems to be such a signature of your work, which I think just speaks to how strong of an eye you have, but also how strong of an ear you have. Like you have such a strong hold on aesthetic that I think is why, you have these collage films that are just so powerful. Like people aren't
Mhm.
really used to seeing a collage film move that smoothly and be that powerful. But anyways, gushing
Yeah.
about how great you
Thank
are.
you.
So going back to The Boy Was Found Unharmed though, because like I feel
Mhm.
like that was the one that was the most provocative for me. And maybe
Mhm.
I don't know if it's okay to ask this, but like, were there certain things that you were kind of like picking apart or insinuating with that were intended to be a little bit uncomfortable to pick apart?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanna provoke the audience, and I think the form speaks
Sure.
to that as well, and never shock value for shock value's sake, always in the sake of a greater point that it's trying to make, and I think shock can be a great way to kind of wake an audience up to something,
Sure.
to just so bluntly kind of confront them with an idea. Um and so, yeah, and I would say, like, across all the films, I think there's implications and suggestions for an audience to kind of dig into deeper, especially in Victim of Circumstance. I mean, I worked on Victim of
Mm.
Circumstance. I mean, we're talking about Boys Found Unharmed. I'll go off on this for 1 second, but I worked on
Yeah.
that film for on and off for 2 years while I was making other stuff as well. So during the making of His Smell, I was also doing Victim of Circumstance,
Mm.
and because of the time that took to make, I would say that I think that's the most like that has the most layers in it. I was going to say if there's something that an audience can pick apart, I think there's a lot to pick apart in Victim of Circumstance, and a lot
Totally.
of different implications in things. But yeah, it's always about yeah, wanting audiences to kind of confront these uncomfortable questions, maybe, and even if the film isn't explicitly asking it.
Yeah.
I always love a movie that when I leave the theater, it still has me thinking about something, and I'm still pondering what the filmmaker is trying to say with the piece.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think that's what I've tried to, and that's always the kind of films that I love and what inspires me, and I think that's what I want to do here, where it's a lot of these films. They ask a lot of questions, but they don't necessarily like answer them in a concrete way. If they do answer them, it's a suggested answer, but I think it's something for an audience to interpret. And that's why I said
Yeah.
before, even I think no matter how an audience kind of takes in the film, I always find it interesting how someone interprets the work because it is so, in some ways, ambiguous.
Yeah. So what were some of the reactions you got to that one then? The Boy Was Found Unharmed. Like, did anyone kind of say like, "Oh, maybe this wasn't ethical," or were you saying this or that?
No, I actually didn't receive any kind of ethical concerns in regards to that one, actually.
Yeah.
But I think part of that too is, I mean, with all of my subjects, whether they're documentary subject in this one or a kind of fictionalized one in another one, it's always want to treat the subject with respect and think about that
Sure.
these are real people, even if I'm
Yeah.
fictionalizing their life elements. It's like these are real people, and these are specific life experiences, and that's to a greater point too, that I don't intend for these films to kind of represent the gay community wholly in any way.
Well,
I'm talking about a very
yeah.
specific kind of experience too. um
Because this is a true
yeah.
story about a boy that was sexually abused by a man, and then the man was killed by the boy's father. Is that right?
Yeah.
And so you have like the clip of the father killing the predator is pretty well known. Like I think it's been in,
Hmm.
I want to say, like Faces of Death or Traces of Death. Like people have seen
Yeah.
that one because it's very shocking, right? But a lot of the short is told in from the perspective of the boy who's now a grown
Hmm.
man. Is he now a gay man? Is that right?
No, sorry, I was saying gay in regards
Oh,
to the other films. I was just talking generally about He Never Dies when I said that.
oh,
But
okay. Okay, because I
are
think that
yeah.
was maybe what I misconstrued about it was that like there was insinuation in a way of like not that the short was like not that the short was pro abuse of a child or anything, but that there was maybe like the victim had grown up to become a lot less judgmental towards the predator and was kind of uncomfortable about the father's actions. And I
Mhm.
was just like, whoa, what is this saying? Like,
Oh,
yeah,
I
I
see
don't
what
know.
you're
Do you
saying.
know what I
I
mean?
mean,
Like,
I
Okay.
do, yeah. No,
Okay.
I mean, for me, that one's not gay, that film. For me,
Yeah.
that fits into He Never Dies because I think the theme of a lot of these movies, and I mean, it's much greater than this, but I think even if we look at the
Yeah.
most black and white, it's a lot of these stories of boys who are kind of used for their bodies.
Right.
And I think, and that's how that one I would say ties in more than any kind of explicit kind of gay connection. But for me, I was fascinated by that film because yes, I had seen that footage a lot. I had seen In Trace to Death. I think I had first seen it there's a like a violence montage in Bowling for Columbine, and I think
Oh,
I
okay.
first saw the clip there when I was really
Yeah.
young, and it always stayed with me because it's just so graphic, and they showed it in the documentary. And so it always stayed with me for that. But when I was making that film, it was kind of the same question I had with when I first started the project with Taking a Jordan, which was about looking at the victims of these crimes as real kind of players in these stories. And I find that often the victims in these things are in these narratives are such a kind of footnote to their own story,
Yeah.
and it's these stories that live with them forever. So even though the boy was found unharmed and the boy was saved, it's like the fact that he still lives with it, the fact that he still has this ambivalence, I suppose, towards his father, where he's like, yeah, I like that he did it, I didn't like that he did it. Like, it's like he doesn't know how to feel either, but he has all these people in his ear telling him his dad is a hero. And I find that really haunting, where it's like, if I was still like, I think about like too like a child star. Like if you remember, I was this is so random, but I was reading about like Mickey Rooney recently, and he was like the biggest
Oh,
actor in the world when he was like the top box office draw when he was like 18, and then he lived to be like 90 something.
right.
And I was thinking about like recently, I was thinking about like what would that experience be like to be on the top, be at the top of the world when you're 18, but then still
Yeah.
have 70 more years to go. And I think about this kid, like he didn't even do anything. He just existed and this kind of befell him. And yet, even though he's been freed from it, he still has to live with that history his entire life and still
Okay.
trying to rationalize it and make sense of it for himself. A lot of these movies too, I guess, are about the like the haunting of the past. I like Taking Jordan
Mm.
started off because I was really interested in the subject of hauntology, and
Hmm.
thinking about like lost futures and where things could go if it hadn't taken a path one way. Um, and so
Mm.
I just
Okay.
think about that too. It's like, oh, how would this person be if they weren't, even though they're safe thing now, how they're still kind of haunted
Okay.
by what did happen to them.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
And I would say like his smell ties into that theme as well too. It's like, how are we able to kind of escape our past selves?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, his smell was like probably the most beautiful, I would say, of all your films. And I mean, we'll get into that later because like as great as your collage work is, like you clearly need to be shooting, feature length films with actors and everything. 100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that maybe because of my perception of The Boy Was Found Unharmed, it did kind of paint things in an interesting way. And this isn't like a criticism. Like say these things, ask these questions, right? But it's so hard for
Hmm.
me anyways to completely divorce Boy Was Found Unharmed from the fact that like all the other films are predominantly about the gay experience, And so for me
Hmm.
to completely divorce that, I guess my mind wasn't really looking. I was looking for something that ties it together. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, for me, the films function as two A sides and two B sides, and the B
Oh,
sides
okay.
complement the A sides. And the B sides
Mm,
take a theme from the A side and extrapolate on it. So,
okay.
Taking a Jordan is the A side, Boys Found Unharmed is the B side. That's how I think about it. And so, as the B side, The Boy Was Found Unharmed takes the theme, like the child abuse theme from Taking a Jordan, and extrapolates on that. And then Victim of
Oh, okay.
Circumstance and Secret Boyfriend takes the love story element of Victim of Circumstance and extrapolates on that.
Okay.
So it's like there's like the main film and then there's the companion film that kind of takes that like one specific theme and does something a little shorter with it.
Okay. Okay.
And that's how I've kind of like looked at the structure of it. Yeah.
Okay. Swear, this is the last time I'll ask about it. Has no one ever asked you about this? Like about that film specifically in the way I'm asking you about it? Has no one
No, never.
said that or
No,
really?
I've never heard that. I've never heard that like specific reading on it. I'm sure you're not the first person to maybe feel that way about it, but I've never heard that reading. But
Yeah.
I always find it interesting. Like I think sometimes like misinterpretations can be just as interesting as correct interpretations, because I think it's
Sure.
about like
Yeah.
how does the information hit us and how do we interpret it, and what does that interpretation and how does that interpretation of this film affect how you see the ones that follow as well.
Right, right. And I think that is it speaks to like how your films work in a way because they are intended to be provocative. They are terrifying, but they're also not just those things. They want you to
Yeah.
ask these questions and kind of dig through them and find them, you know. Um
Hmm.
yeah, the other thing that your work reminded me a lot of was Dennis Cooper. Are
I've
you
heard that
familiar?
before. Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
haven't read him. You've never read Dennis Cooper.
No, and what where did you read that?
Oh,
You must have read that somewhere. You must have read that
because I
somewhere.
read Dennis Cooper like 20 years ago. I did like a big Dennis
Yeah.
Cooper deep dive. Man, you have to read the sluts. Get the sluts. Get
Yeah.
that's like in my opinion his best book because
Mhm.
it's mainly told in emails and reviews of male hustlers, and it's super dark and it's super complicated and provocative and layered. A lot of
Mhm.
his work is like that. Frisk was like that. I'm failing to remember the names of them because they're all like pretty vague names, like Frisk. Like that's just like one
Yeah.
word. How are you gonna remember that? But yeah, Dennis Cooper, and he's a filmmaker now too. So maybe he's man. You should
Yeah.
send him your stuff and just be like, hey, what do you think? I've been told that what I do is kind of similar, you know. But I've had a lot of
Mhm.
guests on here that have been like, hey, your work reminds me of Ryan Tricarton, and they're like, who the hell is Ryan Tricarton? So do you know Ryan Tricarton?
Yeah, I do know Ryan Tricardon.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank God.
I almost met him on my tour this summer.
No way. Tell me more.
Yeah, when I was in because he lives in Colorado, I believe.
Okay.
So when I went to Iowa City this summer to do as part of this He Never Dies tour, when I was traveling around with the films,
Yeah.
me and my friend who I was traveling with, we almost stopped over to because he's friends with Ryan Tricardon, so we almost went and
Sick.
linked up with him. But because he's building like an amusement park on this property he owns in
What?
Colorado. Yes, we were gonna go check out this amusement park. Like, it's I don't understand why, but
That's
it sounds
sick.
sick.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, that
Yeah,
sounds like something he would do because he's one of the few, and I don't know if you'd agree. If you know others, please tell me. But one of the few like video artists like yourself that, but he actually makes like funny movies. You know what I
mhm,
mean? Uh,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, if you know others, please let me know. But I remember around the time getting into Tim and Eric, and then discovering Ryan Tricarton, and it was like such a of the
right.
same universe. So, yeah,
Yeah, that's so funny. But but to that point, I think Ryan Tricardon does something interesting though, where he's making video art, but he's doing it in a way that feels that has a kind of maybe a genre pull, or he's doing something that makes it's video art, but it's entertaining, right?
right.
And I guess that's also in terms of the way I'm constructing my films too, is
Hmm.
like want to do something that's like I feel like so many people think about like experimental film as very or video art as just very dry or very didactic too, and I always think like
Totally,
I watch so many experimental short films, and I always think that, oh, it's a great idea, it's a very formal kind of thing you're doing, but like, but that's it. It's something that I can appreciate, and it's interesting, and I like, but it doesn't amount to anything more substantial in feeling, I would say. And so for me,
totally.
I guess in terms of constructing these films, is wanting that sense of that, like I said, expressionist kind of sense of feeling, but in an
Yeah,
experimental package. Like I've found that like an audience will come with you on an experimental journey if you structure it in a way that feels accessible, that has a narrative that they can kind of that like anchors it. Experimental film, I think, needs that kind of anchor to draw in an audience and to kind of tell us something that is more emotionally kind of involving than
right.
just formal kind of experimentation.
So, who are the people that have influenced you then in that kind of world?
In the world of video art, yeah, that's the thing. I feel like there's a lot of video artists that I whose work I can appreciate, but they don't necessarily like outwardly inspire me because I think they're working
Sure.
in such a kind of strict, limited way. In
Mm,
terms of just focusing on the form, like I think form is important, but I also think that like we as humans are like drawn to stories. We're drawn to narrative too, and so I think that a narrative allows you to kind of do all these crazy experimental things, but anchor it in something that's real and palpable. I don't know. In terms of inspirations, I mean, a big inspiration for this cycle specifically, I would say, and he's not experimental necessarily, but is Arthur J. Bresson,
Oh.
the
Hmm.
art gay porn filmmaker from the 70s. Um,
Hmm.
I really love that his work just and my films are much darker, of course, but like I
Yeah.
like that he's depicting gay men just as they kind of exist, and sex is just like another part of that too. Like I love that
Hmm.
he's telling very like human, real, like emotional stories, but he's doing it in part through these sex scenes. Um, but I think compared to, like, a lot of other 70s, 80s kind of vintage porn, it's like his work is
Yeah.
so focused on that narrative, so focused on character, it kind of transcends, I think, any kind of idea of being just porn.
Hmm.
And so I find yeah, and so that to that aspect, I find that really inspiring too, where it's like I'm using pornographic images in my films, but I would never call these porn films.
Right.
Um and I remember this, and a little different from Bresson, but like I remember one time when Nymphomaniac was coming out, Lars von Trier talking about how this film isn't
Oh.
pornographic because it's not meant to get you off.
Okay.
Which is how I think about these films too. Like I think
Huh.
I think porn is meant to titillate, it's meant to arouse, and I think there's a way to see sex in a movie that isn't meant to be sexy, that isn't necessarily
Hmm.
meant to be arousing. It can be, but it's not the point.
I really have to restrain myself, but I really badly want to just ask you if you're familiar with pink films.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah,
The Japanese pink films? Okay,
yeah,
because
yeah,
that
yeah.
is such a, like, world that it's so hard to wrap your head around that because the films are
Mhm.
actually designed they're supposed to titillate. They're played in theaters where you're supposed to get
Right,
off, right? But the films
right.
themselves, you watch them, you're like, "Who is this for?"
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, exactly. Or it's like I saw this, there's this movie that I really love, called Bottom by Todd Verno,
Hmm,
which is about it's a documentary from 2012, and, it's about this guy, in New York who just goes out and is just trying to have as much anonymous sex as possible, and
okay.
it's a documentary, and it follows him doing that, and so much of the film is just like these, like hidden camera, like filmed legally, like the subjects know, but like a hidden camera filming his like sexual encounters in his apartment, and
Right.
the only place to watch it was on X Hamster, and I was thinking
Oh,
like,
wow,
who
okay.
could be? I was like, who could be getting off to this? Like, I mean, I get it. I get who could actually, but like,
Yeah.
but the film itself is so like it feels so bleak and dark and harrowing, and just very uncomfortable. We like something that we shouldn't be seeing, and someone who after a while we genuinely the subject of the film that we feel concerned for, um, but yet people are watching it on this porn site too. Um,
Mm.
and I find that very fascinating too, like in terms of like I guess as we as audience how we can interpret it differently too, where like this one thing is very troubling, harrowing for me, another person's getting off to the same thing. Um,
Yeah. But it makes me
yeah.
think though about how like this came up when I was talking about pink films in another episode how like I mean
Hmm.
you can believe that someone got off on it in the sense that we all have the ability to rewind and pause or rewind and play over certain images, you know? And I think that
Hmm.
pornography has changed because it's not just in theaters anymore. Once it's been distributed via video and then on the internet, people are now able to just turn it into more of a utility. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's the
Right.
utility of sexual imagery that makes it more viable as a piece of pornography.
Right. Well, I also feel like there's been such a distinction too. I was reading this article a little while back that Hollywood films, like compared to the 80s or 90s, have very few sex scenes, and
Hmm.
it's theorized that it's because of the kind of proliferation of pornography in a mainstream way. Like if we can see it on the internet, we don't have to go to the theater and watch like Richard Gere and Julia Roberts mess
Right.
around. Like who
Yeah.
cares,
Yeah.
right? Um, but I also feel like, but maybe I think that that lack of I don't know, the neutering of sexuality just generally on screen, I think is also what's primed a lot of younger people to look at sexuality or sex scenes as again, unnecessary sex scene discourse kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Not used to seeing it in movies to that same extent.
It also kind of forces sex into this arena where it's only going to shock. Whereas like sometimes sex
Exactly.
happens between two people that are in love or two people that just want to have sex and it's totally consensual and fine, and it just adds to the story, and it's not meant to like freak anyone out. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Whereas now
Yeah.
it doesn't really have that lack of impact. When people see sex in a film, they go, "Whoa, they made that choice." Whereas before it wasn't really
Yeah.
about like we're gonna make a choice to affect how this film impacts people. It's just, oh, and then this film has a sex scene here and there. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, no, I think it's just like a sheltering of viewers. And you can
Yeah.
only expect to viewers to be comfortable with what they're seeing. You know what I mean? Like in the 70s with like new Hollywood, audiences
Mm,
were seeing all of these these gritty 70s movies. That's what they wanted, and that's because that's what they were primed for. That was the era they were living in and what they were accustomed to.
yeah.
If you release like Taxi Driver now, what it's gonna be like an indie film, quote unquote, that plays at TIFF for like a week. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
audiences aren't primed for the same things that they once were. I don't think that audiences are as curious, maybe,
Mm,
as they used to be. Um, and that's what I found so kind of rewarding about the response of these films too, is how positive it has been that people do seem excited to see this kind of transgressive and so like explicitly like queer work.
yeah.
Um, yeah, like and so that's been really exciting to see that there actually is interest in this.
Yeah. Well, you've had
Yeah.
some of your shorts play alongside Bruce LaBruce's films. Is that right?
Yes, last February at the Paradise for the, Toronto premiere of his film The Visitor, Victim of Circumstance, screened in front of that.
How did people
Yeah.
react to it?
Really well, really, really well, actually. I
Totally,
think,
yeah.
yeah, like, it seemed like people weren't expecting that film. People thought they were coming out to The Visitor, you know what I mean? And we're expecting a
Oh,
Bruce film, and then
sure.
they're hit with this. And so I think people were very exhilarated by it. It was something very different, something they weren't expecting. And if you're going in expecting Bruce's work, like I think that this film, Victim of Circumstance, is very different tonally. Like Bruce's film is much more, even though they both have like explicit queer sex, like I feel like that's what ties them together, like just that really. Because the
Yeah.
tone of Bruce's film is much more comedic and satirical and present day also, and formally it's
Yeah.
very different. So I think it
Yeah.
was a very interesting kind of pairing though too. And Bruce is someone whose work that I've looked up to for a while. So I also thought it was. I heard someone say it was kind of like being at the screening for it felt like a passing of the torch, where they were seeing this
Oh, amazing.
Bruce's kind of queer generation. You know what I mean? And then my kind of so
Yeah.
I don't know. So that was very nice to hear as well too. Um,
But
yeah,
did you get to
yeah.
talk to him about it? Like, was he supportive?
Yeah, no, Bruce really liked the film. It's so funny. During the strobe scene that you mentioned, Bruce like got up and was like taking a video of the screen. Like
That's awesome.
it was so good. It was really
Oh,
funny.
cool, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, no, he really liked it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he seems like someone that would be good to keep in contact with as like the elder gay filmmaker, as you say, passing the torch. Like maybe he can help
Hmm.
you get your films into like other, in front of other eyes and stuff, So you've
Yeah.
been playing,
Get me a
you've
job
been
working with
touring.
Cocky Boys.
What's Cocky Boys?
No, it's like you can get me a job working with Cocky Boys because Bruce does. It's like a porn studio that Bruce does like work for. He like makes porn because
Oh,
Bruce also
okay.
makes like porn films, porn like scenes for studios.
Sure, sure. I mean, I'm sure
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's
I'm
good
just
money
kidding,
there.
but
Is that something that you would do?
yeah. No, I mean, not necessarily. It would have to depend. Like, I would like to what I was saying about like Arthur J. Brisson Jr. Like, I think that like to make a film that had real characters, real drama, and incorporated sex scenes, I think it'd be something
Yeah.
really interesting to play around with. Because I mean, I think we're seeing with like like heated rivalry even
Oh,
there's
yeah,
something that can
yeah,
be
yeah.
there's something that can be said in terms of like how you explore a character through a sex scene as well, and how you
Mm,
watch power dynamics unfold and all of that kind of stuff. So I do think it'd be interesting to kind of play out a set like a real sex scene, but like as a piece of a drama. And so if there was an
right.
opportunity to make something like that, like then I think that would be fun to make. But I think just a sex scene in and of itself, just two people fucking, I think would be kind of boring. Like unless there was something to kind of
Mm,
bring to it. Yeah.
right. But you've shot footage before that you've incorporated in your collage-based films, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what if you actually shot real sex scenes and incorporated them in collage-based film work? Would you ever do
Well,
something like that?
Yeah, well, I thought about that as well, and not just with sex scenes specifically, but just in general, kind of bringing my 2 filmmaking forms together, where I have my films that I shoot with
Mm,
actors, my DV films, and then I have my collage found footage films. And so, yeah, I mean, in terms of my kind of upcoming projects, I've been thinking about playing around with different methods of
mm,
combining the 2 things together. I mean, it's very
yeah.
subtle, but I started doing it with Secret Boyfriend. All that footage of the clouds in that movie is all stuff that I shot, like a time lapse that I shot.
Oh
Um
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so it's not with actors, but it was me in a very subtle way beginning to incorporate my own footage into this found footage world. But for this
Right.
next project, whatever it is, like I really want to try and tackle kind of merging them together more concretely. Yeah.
Can you talk more about this next project? Because I'm very curious.
Yeah, I mean, that specific one is that one's a little open at the moment. I'm working on 2 more found footage films, like that are fully found footage films for the He Never Dies cycle. So I'm kind of
Oh,
focusing on
cool.
those right now, and I'm working on those. But I'm also kind of developing a larger project. Yeah, I mean, there's not too much to say about it at the moment. I'm in the early stages of kind of developing a feature at the moment, or a longer kind of narrative
Sick.
project. So I'm thinking that
Okay.
film, the feature, might incorporate some found footage stuff, but would mostly be
Mm.
actors. It's still kind of something that's in flux that I'm developing. Yeah.
Sure. You know what I love? I mean, you can throw this out if you have to, but just like when a film is like a narrative, like straightforward structure, and then all of a sudden there's like, then we went on like spring break, and then you have this complete change in the
Hmm.
form for that one
Yeah.
section, you know? Like I just watched this movie for the first time, All About Lily Choo Choo. Have you seen that?
No, I've heard of it.
Oh, you gotta see it. You gotta see it. It's so good. Because it kind of does that where it's the film is shot digitally, but then about an hour in, it's like kind of like a harsh coming of age film, and all the teen boys go on vacation, and that whole portion of the film is shot with like camcorders, and it's so powerful to have this like change in form, you know? But yes,
Hmm.
definitely watch All
Yeah.
About Lily Choo Choo. It's like the first film of the year that's had
I'll
like a
look that up.
real impact on me, you know? In terms
Yeah.
of
Oh, I love
you
that.
know, not to sound like basic or anything, but in terms of like more normal movies, like more normal feature films, like what kind of films have you like? What kind of films are you a big fan of? Like, what's made an impact or influence you?
Um, I would say probably the most impactful film in my life is probably Gummo, because when I saw it
Oh,
when I was
okay.
like when I saw it when I was like, yeah, 17, it like
Yeah, yeah,
completely
yeah,
reoriented the way that I thought movies could or should be constructed. And you're talking
yeah.
about like the camcorder, like the way that he uses like collage in that as well, whether it's yeah, photo, DV, film. Um I've always found very inspiring, and I like the idea that, like, a movie and I think I play around with this too in the way that some of my plots are constructed, but I like that the plot in Gummo doesn't really have necessarily a beginning, middle, or end, it just kind of exists. It doesn't really
True.
it doesn't like and there is of course, there's some action, but, like, I like that it's not about building up a narrative, it's about experiencing these characters and experiencing the world, and I feel like that really inspired the way that I kind of approach filmmaking as well, in terms of the narrative can exist, it's there, but it's not as important as what it feels like and who this person is and kind of exploring them.
Totally.
So I would say Gummo. I mean, I have always really loved like 80s Italian like exploitation films. I love Lucio Fulci. The New York Ripper is
Oh,
like one of my
hell
favorite
yeah.
films.
Oh, fuck
Um,
yeah.
I love like I'm obsessed with this documentary Streetwise from the 80s.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of it.
Which is about like homeless kids like in Seattle, and I love that it's a documentary with no talking heads. It's all just kind of fly on the wall cameras just following the subjects.
Nice.
It just it feels like a like just a narrative film, but it's a documentary, and I think that's really interesting too. Like I'm really interested in like these hybrid methods of working where you kind of combine this realism, this documentary element, but with more of a narrative, with more of that structure as well. Um, yeah, I find that's such a beautiful film. I love Midnight
Mm.
Cowboy. That's one of my favorite movies. Which I think is a bit, which
Okay.
in hindsight, I
Good
didn't think about
movie.
it
Yeah.
consciously at the time, but I think in hindsight is a big inspiration for Victim of Circumstance. Um, yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's my
Sure,
letterbox. That's my
sure.
letterbox four, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, your top four. Okay, I appreciate that. In terms of Streetwise, like, it kind of makes me think of a film. Like, I'm just gonna recommend more movies to you. Do you know
Yeah, yeah,
Funeral
yeah.
Parade of Roses?
I
Okay, okay, cool,
do.
cool,
I
cool.
do. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, you
I've
haven't seen
never
it
seen
though.
it. I've never seen it. It's been recommended to me, but I still haven't had a chance to watch that one.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I've
definitely
heard great
check that
things.
out because yeah, that the way that mixes form or different forms and it mixes documentary and narrative is pretty shocking. And I think also it came out late 60s. So whenever I see a film from the past like that, that
Mhm.
feels like, oh my God, like it feels like something someone made just now.
Yeah,
I'm like write it on the list. There's another
right.
movie I want to hold on a second. I'm gonna grab it. So this movie, I highly recommend checking out. Is it backwards? The Wounded Man?
No, The Wounded Man. Okay, I looked this up.
Yeah, so this is a masterpiece of transgressive queer cinema from director Patrice Chereau. Uh oh, it's from Altered Innocence. Do you know that label?
Yeah, actually, I do. Yeah, I do. I met with Frank, the guy who runs it, while I was in LA.
Oh,
Actually,
nice,
yeah.
nice. Okay. Is he a fan?
Yeah, he came to the LA screening and he gifted me a whole
I'm
bunch
re-
of queer cinema.
What do you got there? What do you got there? Let's see. Let's
This
see.
is Astrakhan, Lost Country, Suicide Room, and Juice and Daddy Dearest by Arthur Bresson. I don't know if it's backwards.
Oh, okay, Arthur Bresson that you were talking about earlier. Never heard
Yeah.
of those. But the one director that Altered Innocence put me onto that I'm obsessed with and highly recommend checking out is Bertrand Mandico. Have you heard of him before?
I don't think so. What has he done?
His work, um, his last film was called She Is Conan, and then he did The Wild Boys, and he's done tons of shorts. And okay, I
I
I
think I've heard
don't
of The
even
Wild Boys,
know.
yeah.
Okay, so his films are kind of like a mixture of like Dark Crystal and sleaze. Like
Oh.
they're like crazy body horror puppetry, like things are oozing, things are glittery. Everyone it's all just like gender bending, lots of lesbians, like it's the craziest shit I've ever seen. It usually makes no sense, but if you're
W-
into just the aesthetic of it, it's fucking wild.
Okay, I gotta check this out. It's called The Wild Boys. Okay, yeah. I've heard of this
Wild
one. Yeah,
Boys is a good one. Yeah.
it's on my watch list already.
Okay, nice, nice. You get
Awesome.
a whole
Perfect.
marathon for the rest of the day now.
Yeah, perfect.
Nice, nice. So,
I I actually, if I can add on to that too, I would also say I don't know if you if you know the films of Paul Morrissey, but I find him very
yeah.
inspiring as well. If for the way that he kind of
Okay.
combines these documentary and narrative elements too. Like I remember seeing Flesh when I was really young and being really captivated by that
Mm.
film and the weird things that it does, like formal kind of things it does too. Like the opening shot is like 5 minutes or something of just Joe D'Alessandro just sleeping. And it's just his face asleep for 5 minutes, and the way it just like
Okay.
holds on certain images, or the way that it like really shoots from a distance, like shoots actors from a distance as if we're spying on them. Like just these films that kind of blur that line, like you're saying, between documentary and narrative, I always find really fascinating.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But when I look at your work though, I don't really see and I hope you take this the right way that like I don't see choices being made that are necessarily like aesthetically difficult. I find that the way you edit in the most micro sense is very pleasing. It's very like it's either calming or exhilarating, but to me those are both actually like fairly pleasing kind
Hmm.
of sort of how would I put it, like modalities, like
Yeah.
you're just always making sure that it's exciting, it's never boring. And so to me I could never see you do like, oh, I'm just going to show like a 5-minute clip of someone sleeping. But so
Right.
how does that influence in you then, because you just said he was like a big influence for you, like what do you take from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these collage films are very like hyperactive, right? But at the same time, by the same token, I also really appreciate like slow cinema and films that kind of just like hold on things. And I mean, I was
Mm.
just rewatching like Twin Peaks: The Return, and I
Oh,
really love
nice.
how like Lynch will just like have these like really long, even dialogue scenes that just go on and on, or scenes that kind of hit dead ends and go nowhere. Like I like these
Right.
things that kind of just exist for the like the experiential quality of the film itself, really, where because I think there's a way to tell the return in a way that's very concise, to the point, very plot driven, but that's not the point. And I like that we're just kind of
No.
sitting in this world, just like Flesh. Like we're just being, and there's in Flesh, there's so many scenes where, because the movie is like him going around New York trying to raise money, trying to do sex work to raise money for his girlfriend's abortion. And so it's just like
Oh
him and a
wow.
bunch of
Okay.
encounters with different like closeted gay men in 1960s New York. And there's these very
Mm,
long dialogue scenes, but I like that it allows us to kind of exist in this world and take that in.
okay.
Like I feel like that film, like I think that when a film can really hold like that, um, it feels still, but it feels so full of life. Like I feel like I watched Satan Tango, all of Satan Tango in like
Mm,
one sitting because I was so captivated by it. Even though it's insanely long, all these long takes, it's like the the emotionality that exists behind all of it is so captivating and engrossing. I don't care that I'm watching people walk for 20 minutes.
right. Right.
And
R.I.P.
and RIP, exactly. And
Yeah.
and to your point, like I think it's just about being gripping and being gripping, being
Yeah.
entertaining doesn't mean that you have to be always hyperactive. Like I don't think that his smell. I think his smell is a very like low key kind of quiet movie compared to the other ones. I don't
Sure.
think you always have to be so hyperactive, but
No. No.
no, I think there's something to stillness
Yeah.
too that I think is really important.
Totally. I think it's always a juxtaposition, though, right? Like if you had a film that is entirely still, I think
Yeah.
that that's harder to pull off. Where having
Yes.
still that all of a sudden bursts into something else more
Hmm.
exciting, it does make the stillness seem that much more still, that much more like stirring in a way, you know?
Right.
And I think that your work does that really well of going like kind of back and forth of like the quiet and then the extreme. Victim of Circumstance was really good at that, where it kind of seemed to like crescendo halfway in, and
Hmm.
then the second half of the film, because it's 20 minutes, is almost more like, oh, like everything's like kind of happy and chill now, you know? It seems like the
Yeah.
happiest portion of the entire He Never Dies cycle, which
Hmm.
I'm assuming was your intent.
Yes, but is it fully happy?
I don't know, is it? I hope this is okay. I say this, but like the ads for all the different, like the meetup ads, some of them are kind of funny to me. Like I hope that's
Yeah.
okay. Like, where was that intended?
Yeah, like I think yeah, so some of them are funny, and part of that is to kind of like break the
Okay,
tension. Like we're seeing
right.
those
Yes, yes.
we're seeing
Okay,
those ads right after the strobe scene. So it's like it's to kind of bring us down a little bit. Some of them are funny, but I mean I'm really captivated by the ones that are like very introspective too. But I think for us to really kind
sure.
of understand the longing in those, we need to see some of the other ones too. Like I think of those ads in a lot. Like I think about like what would it be like if like your grinder profile was like immortalized 40 years later. That's basically what these are. And some
Yeah,
people on there are like actually looking for love. They're looking for connection. Some people are just looking to fuck. And like,
right.
and I think that distinction has always kind of been there. And I think that's interesting. Like I think a lot of this film too is, especially Victim of Circumstance, is even though it's a period piece, like looking at the looking at it as the history that leads up to where we are today too. So it's like these experiences that we see in the 80s aren't completely gone. They've just kind of evolved into something different. And porn,
Yeah,
it's not gone. It's evolved into something different. Um,
right, right.
yeah.
The one thing that, and I kind of feel like, does this exist anymore? Like this wording, like straight appearing? Do people actually say that in profiles anymore?
They probably wouldn't say it like that.
Okay,
They,
yeah, because that
yeah,
was
no, no.
that stood out to me. I never was aware of that. Of like, oh, people would be like, oh, I'm straight appearing. Because I think to me, I'm like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, well, and this is part of it too, right? Like I was saying earlier, it's like this film being about existing in a time where you're taught to hate yourself.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Just so even that little thing too, like in those it's a very intentional in those want ads, like or the personals, like so many of them say straight appearing.
Yeah.
And that's not an editorial choice. That is in that magazine. A lot of the ads say straight appearing. So that's
When
not
you
like
wait,
selective picking. Yeah.
when you say editorial, you mean that magazine or you? Like, did you pick the ads because you wanted to point that out? Or are you saying
Yeah.
you
Oh,
didn't that was just happenstance?
no, no, no. So no, I'm saying I picked those ads because I wanted to point that out, but I wanted to point that out
Oh, okay, okay.
because in the magazine, naturally, so many of them say that. Yeah.
Right, okay, gotcha,
And so we
gotcha,
probably
okay.
wouldn't use, and that's the thing. Like I wouldn't even take it off the table that like we wouldn't use that today because I could definitely still see people using that. But um, even if they didn't say it as explicitly nowadays, like I think the sentiment is still there that like even among gay men, there's an idea of masculinity and a way to kind of that you should be representing yourself as a man, and a way that that's
Right.
desirable, that like maybe a feminized man is still less attractive than a stereotypically
Ah,
masculine man, even within the gay community. Um, and why? And then you ask yourself, but then why is
yeah,
that? Like, why are we taught that?
yeah. Right. So I think at the time when these ads were coming out, straight appearing it was definitely within a different context of like straight appearing might be something more to do with internalized homophobia, whereas now straight appearing might be something more of like an aesthetic choice, like a performative choice in a way.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
It does, but I think that like and I guess to these films more broadly, it's like we want to think about these issues as queer issues of the past, and I don't think that they are necessarily. I
Sure.
think that a lot of people still do have internalized homophobia, and they do come at it from that perspective. And for some people, um,
Yeah.
like I don't think that's necessarily gone away. Like I think if you go outside of, I mean, even inside of, but I think if you go outside of any kind of major metropolis, any kind of urban center, you're going to see that being openly gay, even in a masculine way, maybe like isn't the most accepted thing. And so,
Hmm.
um, and that's why I also take kind of issue with people who say like you're depicting these things very darkly, or it's like, well, these aren't issues that are gone. These are issues that are still very much present. That people are maybe you're not dealing with it as
Hmm.
someone in New York or in LA or whatever, but like a lot of people, like if
Right.
I go to rural Ontario, it's going to be a very different experience for me than if I'm here. That's part of
Yeah.
the point too. So I think yeah, some of it like in terms of the personal ads, it's like yeah, like how do we need to represent ourselves? Maybe because of internalized homophobia, but also if nothing else for our own safety. And again, how do we
Okay.
get through a world where and again, it's even more so in that time where we're made to feel like the other or unwanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right, right. Okay.
And so
Huh.
and it's just I still think it's like and I think like it's funny like like these ads it's like a lot of it is about like queer respectability. Like I'm going to be a queer person, but as long as I'm not too overt with it, as long as I'm not advertising it in a big way. um
Right. Yeah, so that's interesting then because I mean if cuz to me like because you're doing collage work, it's all about juxtapositions, like things that come before the next thing, right? And so I
yeah.
think seeing the ads maybe led me to see more of the happiness in the ending that you say is not quite there, and that this guy is now amongst men where I'm assuming he's safe. He seems happy and having a good time, and he doesn't have to hide away from anyone. But then I don't know. I mean, there's clearly something I'm missing about that. So yeah.
Well, I just think about it's about like the journey that we go through to get there and the hardships
Sure.
that befall him on that journey and the transformations that happen to him. Like I don't think he's the same person at the beginning of that story as he is at the ending. And I think that character has gone through a great kind of evolution, especially um with the law with the I'm trying not to say too much. Especially with
Ah!
but
All
I
right,
think
all
that
right.
character, yeah, I'm trying not to say too
I
much.
can
Like
cut it out. I can cut it out.
okay, yeah, I don't want to be too vague for your audience, but I also don't want to say
Right.
too much. Um, but yeah, I think that ending, I think that ending, like a lot of things in life, I think is both beautiful and tragic. And I don't think there's
Hmm.
necessarily like a right or wrong way to read that. I think that there just is. He's been through this journey, and now he's here at the end. And how does that journey stay with him, or how does he transcend it? And and I think it's up for the audience to ask that question. I think the clues of what I'm trying to get at are all there. There's the Wizard of Oz sample at the end of the movie, which I think is very important.
Okay.
the audio sample from The Wizard of Oz,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
again, tying Wizard of Oz into queer history too, I think is an important thing. But
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I feel like I've said I shouldn't say too much more about the ending,
No, no,
maybe,
no,
but
no.
yeah,
I mean, I will say that hearing you say, you know, it's not about a beauty or tragedy in a sense of like that binary of beauty and tragedy that has to be one or the other. It's about the person's journey and how they wrestle with that, which is interesting because that brings me back to the boy who was found unharmed. And
let's
how
do
like
it.
that's kind of a way to no, I'm not getting back into it. I'm just saying it's giving me kind of like a way to wrap my head around that a bit more
Right.
and see how it ties into it. There is no like actual queer subtext to it, really. And I think
No.
that I thought there was. And so, but at the same time, the thing that unites them in a way is the fact that it is about someone going through a harrowing journey and having to basically like assess like what does that mean to them, and maybe not applying these things harsh as like it's beautiful or it's tragic. It's something for them to determine on their own with
Yeah.
their own agency.
Like I think a lot of like I think about things in this way where it's like some things are neither good nor bad, they just are. They just exist.
Okay.
And like
Yeah.
and I think that there's no like like for me, I'm not coming at the finale or any of these films with any kind of like moral judgment, I would say. I think I'm presenting things, and I think that I think it's up for the audience to kind of yeah, um to interpret it as they kind of see fit. But yeah, for me there's no yeah, judgment on good or bad. It's just this is how it happened. And this is how it happened
Right.
for a lot of men in terms of like a lot of these men who got into in this era who got into porn were men who were troubled. They were down on their luck. They were robbing people. They were doing anything they could to kind of make money. And this was just
Sure.
one of another like a one in a long list of things they were trying to do. Um
Mm.
and so and that's the thing too. It's like I think we have a very open mind and perspective to sex work nowadays. I think as we should,
Yeah.
but I think that it's
Yeah.
also and I think it's also important though to remember that these films do not depict that time. Because I've heard people who work in sex work critique.
Mm.
This was so funny. Someone who came to one of my screenings asked a question and said that like I'm a sex worker and I have an issue with like a question like that. And I
Hmm.
found that very fascinating because they weren't gay, they weren't a man, and they didn't live in 1985. And
Right, yeah.
like I was thinking, it's
Huh.
like I don't think, like I said before, it's like I don't think these films encompass all of queer culture, and I don't think they encompass all of sex work. I think they encompass a type of story at this moment in time, and a story that we
Yeah.
can still see the effects of today, but it's very much a story of that period. Um,
Right.
because even if we looked at it now, it's like, and of course, there's still regular porn stars, but with OnlyFans stuff like that,
Hmm.
actors, models have a lot more autonomy in the way they didn't then. They were just mechanisms, or you know what I mean, clogs in a machine, basically, or cogs in a machine. Um,
Yeah.
and they were, and that was part of it too. It's like they didn't have that agency, they didn't have that power, they were disposable. A lot of these guys you see act in films for maybe 2 or 3 years and then disappear. Like and I mean, with Taking Jordan, what first inspired this was like the I'm fascinated by like this idea of like disappearing acts in porn too, where these people who pop up, maybe shoot like a few scenes in a 6 month span, and you never see them again, but their videos continue existing on the internet like 15 years later. And I think about what that
Ah,
means too.
okay.
Like in Taking a Jordan, the guy at the end offers him $200 for the scene he shot, and I think about that too. Where it's like I think about like $200, like even in like 2010, like would that be enough for me to be okay with this existing in perpetuity?
Right.
Um, right? And that's a person to person thing, of course. But I think yeah, like what kind of position are people in maybe that they have to accept such a low rate. Yet in
Right.
Taking a Jordan, he's very excited about $200. He's very excited about two hundred
Yeah.
dollars. Um,
Right.
and that's the thing that I find yeah fascinating too. It's like all of these men too like continue existing as these signifiers, the way these characters they're depicted as in these movies, but that's not their lived experience. Like all these 80s actors, like they have the sunny California twink vibe, but you look at all of their backstories and they're not like these carefree boy next doors in actuality. They're people who
Right.
are they're the antithesis of that. Um, and so I find that like performative aspect of it very interesting as well, and the way that we kind of hold these actors to their images rather than to who they are as a person. And I think that's another way that the Boy Who Still Done Harm
Okay.
kind of ties into all this too, where it's like examining who these people are under the facade of what we're told about them.
Mm, okay. I love that. Yeah. It's like they're robbed of context in a way.
Yes. Yeah, and robbed
Yeah.
of
Okay.
agency too.
Right. Right. Okay.
Oh, and no, and so to bring it back to victim of circumstance, and so that's why I asked at the end, is that him receiving agency, or is that him setting himself up for possible exploitation? And I think those are the two
Yeah.
directions that that ending can go into. And so, is it happy or is it not? Like, and I think that's like I've said, that's I think that's up to the audience, but I think those are the two kind of ways that you could look at that.
I think I can access it now because I think what you're trying to say is that the final scene isn't actually a moment of private sexual enjoyment, it's porn,
Hmm. Yeah. Versus for
right? So
me,
it's
like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, sorry. Finish with that. Sorry, finish that.
Oh no, that was I mean that I want to kind of keep it succinct. Like it's
Yes.
porn. Like
Hmm.
he doesn't have um I don't want to say he doesn't have agency. I feel like that's kind of reductive,
Yeah.
but yeah, he is performing for a camera.
Yes. In a way where
Okay,
like and I would say like the strobe scene, I think it's very like transcendent. And I think for
sure.
like and I think if we compare that final scene to the strobe scene too, and the way that sex is depicted in both of those and who the partners are in both of those scenes, I think is very important as well.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. No, I mean, I do you have I know you have the article that came out with Taking of Jordan, but
Mhm.
do you have like essays that you've written or anything or like pieces that go along with the films that kind of maybe like flesh out some of this context that you're saying now at least?
Yeah. The He Never Dies cycle was actually made as part of my master's thesis at York University. So, along
Cool.
with the films, I did write a whole essay with the films, but that essay is more about kind of the process, I would say, of making the films. Um,
Gotcha.
I do talk a little bit about maybe like the themes or a little bit, but for me, no, I guess for me, a lot of it comes out like a lot of this greater kind of explanation comes out when I've done like interviews or stuff like that. Because like
Mm,
I love when Lynch had that interview where he said that Eraserhead was his most spiritual film, and he was asked to explain it, and he said no. And
yeah,
I don't know. I like I said, I always find like letting an audience interpret is way more interesting to me, even if the interpretation isn't what I'm
sure.
going for. I think that like I've stewed on these films so long, like I think all the pieces are there. Um,
Totally.
for it to click without like having and again like even going to taking a Jordan, like this idea of like the unknown and mysteries, like I find like something is way more like a mystery is way more fascinating to me if I don't have an answer. Like a cold case is more interesting to me than like a cold case that was solved, because I think
Mm,
you're forced to kind of invent, well, what did happen, and you have to come up with your own like, well, I have this detail and this detail, and how do these come together, and how does that make sense? And I think
right.
the mystery of interpreting, I think is part of it as well.
Yeah, it allows you to dream.
Exactly. Like so I try not
Yeah,
to explain when I talk about the films like too much, because I want
sure.
the audience to just kind of be able to take them in. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I like that. We are coming up to an hour 12, so we should wrap if you're cool with that. We'll just get to the questionnaire.
Sure.
But yeah, it was great talking with you. I'd love to have you back on.
Yeah,
I'm really
definitely.
stoked for the next two He Never Dies films and this feature film that's you got cooking up. Sounds amazing.
Yeah,
Is there anything
I'm
else you
excited.
wanted to plug?
So I know we're Toronto based here, but the He Never Dies tour is still
Mm,
continuing on, and we're gonna have a 2 weekend run at the end of March in Seattle. So that's March 20th
cool.
to 22nd and March 27th to 29th. So it's gonna be
Nice.
screening probably 6 times during the weekend. So if anyone from Toronto or anyone else listening out there in podcast
Yeah.
land is gonna be in Seattle end of March, there's gonna be a 2 weekend run there, and we're continuing to book additional shows for He Never Dies. And then I'm also thinking that I'm going to be doing a back in the summer, my Vimeo was taken down. It was removed for
Right.
content. So I've been planning on doing kind of a digital re-release of some of my older films that aren't going to be touring. So look out for that. I'm probably going to be doing a digital re-release sometime in the coming months of those older works.
Cool. And for all your tour dates and everything, best place to find that would that be your Instagram, or do you have your own website?
Yeah, I have my own website. It's just KalilHaddad.com. I have a whole tab for upcoming screenings that I'm always updating, so you can check out when new stuff's coming up. And if you follow me on Instagram at Kalil.Haddad, I'm always
Yeah.
post. I always post on my story before an upcoming screening just to advertise it, so you can follow me on there for any kind of screening updates or any films that I'm working on.
Okay. Awesome. Questionnaire time.
Awesome.
What is one item you can't live without?
My vape.
I knew you were gonna say that. I knew it.
If it wasn't obvious from the way I've been puffing during this interview, yeah.
Yeah. I get it. I get it. What was the last great movie you saw in theaters?
Oh, you know what? I actually just went and saw 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. And I
Oh,
thought
cool.
both of these new 28 years later, I thought I'm not really a fan of the original two movies necessarily, but I thought
Oh,
these last
okay.
I don't know, they didn't I only saw them recently actually in the lead up to the first 28 years. And I wasn't as big of a
Sure.
fan, but I've really been gripped by these last two movies. I think the things they do, especially for horror films, like I think that some of so few horror films lack any kind of deeper meaning or any deeper emotion other than just scares or really cheap jump scares. And I appreciate that 28
Sure.
years later is like it feels like a horror movie like made for adults with like real themes, real characters, emotions. So yeah, I've really
Yeah.
been loving those. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I really want to see the Bone Temple. What was the last great concert you went to?
Oh, I just went and saw Addison Rae back in
Oh, nice.
October.
Okay.
She
Oh,
was really
crazy. Okay.
yeah, she was really good. I also yeah, I would say that was the last great one I went to. Yeah, it was Addison Rae.
Cool.
Yeah,
Where was that?
that was at the Coca-Cola Coliseum. Yeah,
Wait,
and it
wait,
was
wait. What's the Coco? What was that called before?
I don't remember what it was. It's the one that's on the exhibition grounds
Okay,
where the
huh.
Marlies play.
I don't know if this is just specific to Toronto, but I find that our giant venues switch names every few years and it gets kind of confusing.
Yeah, like I just heard about one recently. I even forget what it was called, but it was something had been renamed, and I was looking at concerts, and I was like, "What is this venue?" And it turned out it's
Yeah.
like a venue that's existed for like 100 years. I'm like, "Oh, they just renamed it again." Great.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the last great book you read?
Oh, Rejection. Rejection by Tony. I think it's Talathamut. Tulathamut. Yeah, so I'd say,
Telathamut, Rejection.
yeah,
Okay.
Rejection. Yeah, I would say the last great book I read was Rejection by Tony Talathamut. I believe is how you say his last name. And it's this collection of it's a novel in short stories, he says, where there are like five short
Hmm.
stories, but the characters, like a character will cross over in each of them. And they're all of
Oh,
these
cool.
stories about people like feeling like rejected and isolated from the outside world. Like there's
Hmm.
this one about that that he published online initially that really got me interested in the book that's about like like an overweight gay man who's just obsessed with hentai, and he spends all of his
Oh.
time just drafting, like reading hentai, writing hentai, and he finally gets a boyfriend, and then but he still can't let go of his like I guess masturbation addiction. Like it's
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's a really it's like a really tragic story. Like the whole book is really insane because it's so like all these characters feel so well formed, so real, and their tragedy is so palpable. They're all these like very lost people. Um, yeah, it's a very fascinating book. And then the second half of this hentai story is literally like there's part one that's the guy's story, and part two is literally like a hentai story he writes. And it's just like the
Oh,
most
that's
vulgar,
cool.
insane kind of, and yeah, and again, in terms of, I'm really inspired by like the structure of it. The way that it's
Yeah.
structured as a narrative is very fascinating to me, and I find very inspiring. So, I would say, yeah, Rejection, incredible book.
Just gonna remind you again, Dennis Cooper, The Sluts, because you
I
made me
know, I
think
need
of
to
that.
read that.
You should
It,
look that book up. Yeah, it's
I
crazy.
know, yeah. I've been hearing. It's funny. I had never really been aware of Dennis Cooper as a writer until I started hearing comparisons with Taking of Jordan. which I found so
Cool.
fascinating because he feels like someone who would be on my radar and someone whose work I would love. So yeah, I really
Mm.
want to check out some of his stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, he messes with form quite a bit, so I think you'd be into that.
Hmm.
Okay, so this question's a bit of a doozy. For his final meal, John Wayne Gacy picked KFC chicken, shrimp, and strawberries. For
I
your
hate that I
final
knew that,
meal
by the
before.
way.
Oh.
I hate that I knew that. I knew
That's
that.
awesome. For your final meal before being executed, what would you pick?
Oh, all you can eat chicken wings.
Oh, okay. Is that
I
to
do.
delay the execution?
Yeah, just to
Just
delay the
like, no,
exit.
no, 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 I'm not done. I'm not done.
I'd be
That's
going
great.
pound for pound. It'd be crazy. It'd be crazy.
Flavor, dry, wet.
Oh, see, if I was gonna get really princessy with it, I'd be asking for like I want on every pound is a different flavor.
Nice.
But they'd all be but they would all be yeah, they would all have sauce, they'd all be deep fried, they would all be yeah, like I would say like I'm a buffalo and Cajun guy. Those are my mains.
Okay.
Classic,
Nice.
but yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like dry wings personally. I think because they remind me of shake and bake, and I love shake and bake.
Oh, yeah, see, I love dry Cajun wings. I can't deal with wet Cajun. I don't know what it is,
Mm.
but dry Cajun is where it's
Yeah,
at.
that would be weird. I hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question. And don't feel like you have to go on a long answer because this sometimes is like, oh man, like an hour later. Final question. Can art go too far?
No, in fact, I think art doesn't go far enough, honestly. Like, I think so many
Yeah.
artists, even independent artists who have in theory, nothing to lose. You're not working for a studio. You know what I mean? So many independent artists like don't want to take a risk, and obviously it's because I think a lot of artists would like to do bigger things, so they want to make something that's accessible off the bat. But
Hmm.
I find that a lot of it's oftentimes to an artist's own detriment. I think to be an artist, to be someone who really has something to say or is known to have something to say, you need to actually say it. And I think it's
Mm.
really it's easy enough, I think, to make a really polished kind of film. Like I've heard so many people say like, "Oh, like if I have like the right cameras and like the right like it's like that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter." Like and I always
Mm.
find that like when people are so focused on, "Okay, I just want to tell a very like polished story." It's like that's great, but can you add a little bit of your own voice into it? Can you add a little bit of panache into it? Like everything, I feel like people play it so safe to their own detriment. It's like, please, you're an artist. Do something interesting, do something that you want to see done. I always think about like if I can go see a short film that like looks polished and whatever, if it just looks like a Netflix movie, but at 1/100th of the budget, what does that
Mm.
do for me?
It feels more like a resume.
Exactly.
If yeah,
And that's the thing,
yeah,
I think so many filmmakers, like, make things as calling card pieces, and I want filmmakers to I think yeah, filmmakers think a short film needs to be a calling card, but I think a short film is
mm,
its own form entirely, and I think if
totally.
you're a great director, show me what you can do with that form. I don't care if it looks polished, if it's boring, like
Yeah.
and I think that's the trade a lot of people make is they want to be accessible, but at the sake of their own artistry. And ironically, I think that's what stops people for a lot of people from becoming artists is they play it too safe, and then
Mm,
there's no interest in that work because why would I care if I can watch the exact same thing more expensive at home on Netflix? You're just offering me the cheaper
yeah.
version.
Totally. And I think you know that very well because your work, I wouldn't say it's accessible, but it trades that for being powerful. And at the end of the day, I'd rather see something that is memorable and makes an impact than is an easy ride. So I
Exactly.
totally agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
when I first just to add on to that, like when I first started this project with Taking a Jordan, like I initially thought like who's gonna see this film? Who's gonna want to watch this film? Um, but it was a film that I felt passionate
Mm,
about making, and it was a film that I felt like I had to make, and I had to say something about
totally.
this because I felt it in a real way. And this thing, I would never make a film that like I didn't feel like on a gut level just to make it. I make things that, and especially in the way that I use form and like trying to make it experiential. Like I really need to feel what I'm making,
Mm,
and it needs to come from a place of honesty.
mm.
Yeah, like
Well
artistic
said. Well
honesty.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you're being honest, you can't go too far.
No, exactly.
Exactly. All right,
Yeah.
Khalil, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having
Amazing
me.
conversation. Yeah,
Yes.
no, it was a pleasure. And you'll definitely be back because you're going to do bigger and more amazing things. And
Hell yeah.
everyone go watch Khalil's stuff. He's the next big thing.
Thank you. It was so fun talking. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks, dude. All right, have a good day, and we'll sign off.
All right. You too. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you for listening. To hear more shows from the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, please select the link in the description